All right, welcome to the Lead Generation World Podcast. My name is Michael Faree. Thank you for joining us today. We're doing it live as we're going to be doing moving forward all the time now. I think it's a little bit more fun, and frankly, when we did it in the past, we never really did any edits, anyways. So it's it's always kind of winging it a little bit and going live and having a good conversation with all the individuals we get to have on our podcast. So thank you for joining us again. If you're on YouTube, you can put in comments. You can say hello if you like. Let us know you're there. You can ask questions. We'll both see them and be able to answer them as they come around. So feel free to participate. That's sort of what makes it a little bit more fun doing it live. But I also want to mention before we bring on our guest, we've got Lead Generation World UK that unfortunately was moved to virtual, and I'm not a huge fan of virtual, but we're going to be doing it in the end of May, and I'm really excited about it because we have a really, really great set of content. We're going to be bringing speakers from around the world to talk about lead generation best practices, not just from the generation side, but also from the buy side. So we're going to have some lead buyers from the U.S. and around the world to join in and talk about some of the things that they do to ensure they're getting the best quality leads and their lead management best practices and all this good stuff. So it's going to be really, really valuable to join in. We'll have more information on that coming up in the next week. So if you're not already a part of the newsletter, go to leadgenerationworld.com, join the newsletter so you'll be informed as soon as it comes up. So, excuse me. But let's go ahead and bring in our guest. We've got Ben Cockburn from Cake. Let me just bring him in here. Ben, welcome to the show. How are you?
I'm good, thank you. How are you, Michael?
I'm doing pretty good. I'm sitting here clearing my throat because here it's 8 in the morning and there it's 4 in the afternoon. And so I've got a little bit of that waking the cobwebs off kind of thing on the voice. But how are you doing?
Yeah, I'm doing well. It's been a good day. The weather's been nice for once in the UK.
Yeah.
And things are starting to open up after with coronavirus restrictions slowly being lifted. So
that's exciting. I know, like I just said in the intro, unfortunately, our conference that was going to be scheduled to take place in April had to be postponed, the physical show, until next year. But we're going to be doing a virtual show, with a lot of great content. But it's really, really nice to hear that you guys are starting to open up because you guys have been legitimately locked down for a year. Here in the States, some states, they all have their different regulations and frankly, even some counties and cities have their own things going on. So I feel like it hasn't been quite as locked down as it is there.
Yeah, well, I think we're on to our third now. I think we're locked down for this third one just before Christmas, maybe November, December. And basically you can go to the shops and you can go for exercise once a day. And that's pretty much it. I mean, there's various allowances, like you can bubble with another household if you're a single person, so that you're not just on your own. But for the most part, it's a pretty isolating experience. So I'm very happy to, apparently I can now go to the park and meet a friend. So looking forward to that.
Yeah. It's funny. I mean, I laugh at it because it's so silly, right? To think about I can now go to the park to meet a friend. It's crazy to think about it like that.
Yeah. I mean, it's changed the world. I mean, even here with Cake, we've let go the London office for the moment, with an intention to review it, when things start to open up later in the year. But, I'm one of the, hopefully many of your viewers and listeners are, the lucky few that can actually work from home or work from wherever that we need to be. So during the second lockdown, I spent 6 weeks in Crete, just because a friend was out there and working, and then it locked down. Working remotely like this, I mean, it kind of opens your eyes to the possibilities that we have, really.
Yeah, it's interesting because are you in London, or where exactly are you? You're in London.
I'm in North London.
Northumberland. So a lot of residential, a lot of people live in London, and that sort of thing. Have you seen a sort of an exodus of some sort, like kind of moving out to sort of
Yeah.
the country and that sort of thing?
Off the top of my head, I can think of 3 of my friends or associates, people I've known either from the industry or people that I've gotten to know living down here, and they were previously living in what you would consider kind of the either in the centre of London or kind of like in its connected area, so within the tube map, as you might think of it.
Yeah.
And now they've gone an hour outside of London into the countryside because life. Stuck in a flat with no garden, often no external access, and whenever you go out, you're just surrounded by people. So it can be quite a difficult experience. So people are, the property market softened quite a bit, and there's a general exodus of people.
Yeah, I'm curious because I know that's happened in some of the big cities here, like New York and all that. So everyone sort of just left, to some extent, and moved out, and I'm curious to see how real estate prices and all this sort of stuff, and how the city sort of recovers. I mean, there's always going to be a demand, London or New York or whatever the city is, for people to come back and all that sort of stuff. But I don't know. I'm sure there's going to be a lot of people that aren't, right? They're going to once they leave the city, that's it. So it'll be interesting to watch. But it's good to see that you guys are opening back up, slowly and responsibly and all that sort of stuff. We've got, like I said, some states, and Texas here, just opened up 100% today.
Wow.
They just decided, to forego all mask mandates and all rules and everything, and just open back up.
Wow.
So, we're all over the place. Yeah. Here.
Yeah. But you've got a big country, so you can kind of get a little bit lost in it. So,
that's true.
Hopefully it's not so big for you, but I promise you, trying to cram onto the tube during rush hour is probably a bad idea right now.
Yeah, exactly. But well, good. So I'm, before we get into cake, I kind of always like to get an idea of how my guests sort of got into this industry. And I was looking at your LinkedIn profile, and you have a computer science degree, correct?
Yep.
And the first least job on your LinkedIn profile was working for an affiliate company, right?
Yes. Well, I mean, technically, my very first job, proper job, was a recruitment consultant. I had no idea about affiliate marketing at all. And one day, a company in the same office space that we used asked me to find somebody, and I think I impressed them enough that they decided to hire me. They just asked you to find somebody. What you mean, an affiliate or what was it? Somebody to come work for them, to work on the client services side of the team.
Okay, got it.
And I came in, I was talking to them about this. I was explaining, they wanted to know, they had a few things that they wanted to fill. They were asking about HTML coders and things like that. And I was talking about them about hand coding. Do you want somebody who's like this? Do you want something like that? With my background, obviously it impressed them that I knew so much about it, but also just that kind of job, it's very much inter-company relations. And I came away, and about 2 hours later, they just sent things like, would you be interested in this job that you're trying to fill? And thankfully, I said yes, and it launched me into online marketing, which was never anything that had kind of struck me or occurred at the time. So it was quite serendipitous.
So what were you doing for that first role? Were you doing client success type of things, or
yeah? So I mean, they organized it. So I had a colleague who worked primarily facing affiliates, sort of handling those relationships, and then I was to handle some of the more crucial, not more crucial, but sort of these big relationships. So they had people like we were pitching for Sky TV, which is massive over here, sort of like equivalent to your cable TV.
Yep.
Vodafone, big mobile telephones companies, BT, the equivalent of AT&T for you over in the US, and so they just wanted somebody who could handle a lot of that relationship side of it, and they decided that I would be a good fit, and it kind of grew from there.
So that was that a buy at?
Yes, buy.at.
Buy.at. And then you went on to let's see here, DGM affiliate.
Yeah. So that's when I moved from Newcastle, where I'm from, down to London, and it was a really great move for me. I spent 3.5 years there. Didn't end so well for the company. Unfortunately, they got into an argument with the tax man, and who at one point froze their accounts. And then, if you know anything about affiliate marketing, which I hope a lot of you of your listeners do, trust rapidly evaporated, and it was kind of boxed up, and the technology was sold on. I then went on to another affiliate network, one based in Holland, Trade Tracker, and then I found myself kind of like looking. I stayed there for a while, but it wasn't really the right fit. Ended up working for a couple of related companies. So one was kind of like syndicating Yahoo search links onto affiliate websites, and there was another one helping build product feeds for sometimes for affiliates, but also just for Google Shopping. There's a lot of advertisers out there who really struggle to put together a listings of what the hell they sell online, so
Yeah.
we helped with that. And then eventually somebody I used to work with when I was at or like had relationships with when I was working at Bayat, had this opening at this interesting novel cake marketing, and they worked in the lead gen side as well as the affiliate side, so that seemed really interesting. And then that's what, 7.5 years now I think I've been here. So
yeah, it says 7, according to LinkedIn, it's 7 years and 7 months, so you're just over half a year. There you go.
Yeah,
that's a long time. That's and you know, you get to see, I'm kind of curious to see what your thoughts are on the development now you're like, from, you know, however many years ago, what was that when you first were in the affiliate space? Let's see, 2008. So it was still back then a little bit of the wild west, as they say.
Absolutely.
You know, in 2008, and that was, were some of those campaigns back then, was that mainly European or UK campaigns, or were they also US?
Very focused on the UK. I mean, we had a few
yeah.
sort of activities that went on in the US, but it was, I mean, Buyout was a very large growing company within the UK space, and they got quite big. They're now part of a larger corporation called Affiliate Window, or AWIN, I think they've rebranded themselves to.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it was a very interesting time, but they had operations in other countries, and then when I joined Trade Tracker, that was very internationalist in comparison to what I've been doing before that.
What were some of like the bigger problems back then in 2008 with affiliate marketing that you guys were continually dealing with?
Brand bidding, I think, is probably the biggest thing. I don't know how familiar you are with that, but I mean, a lot of these clients that we were working with were blue chip brand names, so very different from the lead gen world, which I think we'll talk about in a bit. So my experience coming into that, and so at the time, particularly when I first started, you were allowed in Google to bid on any keyword and send to any URL afterwards. So what happened was that a lot of affiliates that became search agencies basically started off by going, well, I'm getting paid a commission for creating generating sales, and nobody's bidding on people's brands. So they would start bidding on the brands and then sending the traffic through, and they were getting these amazing conversion rates, and it was all exploding, and you know, it was really profitable. But then obviously over time, the advertisers realized that that was their brands. They could have a lot more control over it. Google started to clamp down in terms of what could actually be done in that space. And we had to do a lot to sort of rejig and sort of like make it complementary to whatever the activity the advertiser themselves was doing. It's very different these days. I mean, Google has played around with their algorithms in such a way to make it quite difficult to sustain the types of things we used to do before. But we used to have like 10 adverts on every natural search ranking, and managing that process of like, oh, somebody's appeared here, and there'd be rules about, do you appear at 3 or do you appear at 5? And you know, you can't necessarily just control that. You can't say to Google, oh, by the way, I have to be here. So there's a lot of just managing that process, and And my favorites, I got introduced to one affiliate, and they asked, I won't say anything about the story, where they what they were working on and so on, but they came in and they introduced themselves like, hi, I'm one of the brand, I work on your brand bidding side, da, 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 da. This is what I do. I take a screenshot of your advertiser, and then I put that on a web page that I own, and then I put a link behind that image, and then people click on it, and then they go to the website. So people were clicking on the search engine, expecting, and they would put everything sort of branded. You would go to this page, which looked like the page. You would click on what you thought you were clicking on. The page would refresh. You would go, oh, what's that? And then these guys would earn money. So not particularly a great value add for as far as the advertisers were concerned, but it was very profitable in those days, and a lot of fun to manage.
Jeez, man. And those people would get a major fine today if they got caught doing that, or sued, of course, One of the things that I saw on that same sort of idea of spoofing kind of a website was the toolbar. Have you toolbar type of traffic, right? So people would download some kind of spam email, whatever it is, and a toolbar for their browser would be added on and basically never could be removed, or it would look like it'd be removed and then would come back like a month later, but it would become an ad opportunity, right? So they would start highlighting, hyperlinking keywords and all that sort of stuff on branded pages. So I don't know, you go to the Bank of London website, and if that toolbar was on there, there could be mortgage refinance or something on there, or checking account, and it would be hyperlinked. Yeah. So they would click on, then they would go to some other website. So basically siphoning off of traffic off of branded websites. And I think that's still, I think those toolbar type of traffic spam things are still out there, but that was sort of the evolution of spoofing websites, and then also now just adding on these like different spam type of toolbars and all that sort of stuff.
Yeah, I mean it's definitely. I mean it used to be there, and it's gone. And we know I know that we had a lot of trouble sort of like identifying it and kicking it off, because for most brand advertisers, they didn't obviously enjoy having that on their or like having that on their campaign. But also it's kind of I don't know how much of this happens in the US, but something that's happened over here is that cashback websites in the affiliate space have become the largest players, and they basically, you sign up to their thing, and then they just use your tracking link, and they give you back the majority of the money that they earn on commission. And so they actually do sort of still, I mean, they kind of play around with it, but sort of like you visit a website and it's like you can earn cash back if you buy through this site. So it's kind of like it's more legitimate than it was, kind of that thing, but it's still, would the advertiser have still received the sale otherwise?
Yeah, it's a real gray area. I came across a guy who called me a few weeks ago, and he had a website where a system where people would sign up to be to get paid money if they watched ads. Yeah. Right. So, the same sort of concept where, the ads were getting impressions and all this views and all this sort of stuff. And that commission would partly go to the person actually watching it. Their spin on it was that these individuals were watching ads that they wanted to watch. Yeah. But that's kind of a loose, thing, because they're obviously getting paid to do it. So who cares, if they're getting paid to do it, then certainly the intent isn't the same. But
what I've always loved about the affiliate marketing world was always that everybody was very creative about what they actually produced and how they would go about generating these sales. Yeah. So my favorite one, I was working for a large TV company, and we had this affiliate sign up, and they started to do some really good activity, and it was strong, and we checked the quality, and this quality seemed to be good, but we couldn't quite work out what they were doing, and then we eventually tracked it down that they were selling their affiliate link on eBay. And what had happened was that the advertiser had offered an affiliate exclusive, which gave you, like, I think it was free installation plus maybe like £50 off your first month.
Okay.
So they were charging £10 to the consumer in order to get a £50 discount on their thing plus free installation, and people were signing up, and it drove sales. These were good sales. It all stuck around. I think we had them for about 3 months, all the time kind of going, are you okay, saying to the client, are you okay with this? The marketing team were like, well, we haven't quite decided whether we like it or we don't. It certainly seems like something we shouldn't be doing, but at the same time, none of the red flags are popping up at the moment that would normally tell us to shut it off. So but it was just such an innovative way of approaching, just using the basics of, I make commission here, what can I do to make that happen, and these amazing business models.
Yeah, well, I like how you use the words creative and innovative. Yeah, that could be like, that's a wide range of creativity, that could be taking place. But yeah, that's. I mean, listen, when it comes down to making money, sometimes people get creative and people get innovative, and whether it's within the guidelines, and that's part of the challenge, sometimes with not having that transparency. But it sounds, because some affiliate partnerships aren't quite as transparent as they should be, right?
Yes,
and there's things
absolutely
happening and you have no idea what's going on. So so anyway, so you get to get Cake. And what was your first well, let's talk about Cake for a second. People maybe have no idea what Cake is. Tell me a little bit about what Cake is.
So Cake is that's a leading platform, software as a service platform, which allows you to take a white labeled instance of itself and then to build out at its heart, there's a lead gen component, a lead gen distribution platform, but also what it's used for quite often is just as an affiliate network. So we track clicks, we then see the conversions, we link the clicks and the conversions together, and then we associate the commission. So we will work with large publishers and large advertisers and lots of networks in the UK and around the world to basically bring affiliate tracking and lead gen distribution to people who have the connections to make that happen, but not necessarily the technical nous to do that. And it's a kind of a Swiss Army knife that's developed over the last 12 years to become very versatile. We power several hundred clients all around the world.
Yeah. That's a massive breakthrough too, because if we're going back to like 2008 or earlier, and you wanted to become a lead generation company or an affiliate market or use those relationships, it was the barrier to entry was extremely tall. It was very hard and a lot of money to think about how to efficiently distribute leads or clicks or call, all that sort of, and track all that stuff. Was almost impossible unless you had a lot of money and a good team to build that out on your own.
Yeah. And you see it, we go into pitches with clients who've, they've tried to build something themselves and they get it to kind of work, and then they try to scale it and it falls over. Or clients who built it and they kind of treat it as a commodity. And I suppose probably in the last, if you go back like 5 years, 6, 7 years, the market for tracking this kind of thing was pretty static. You didn't need to worry too much. You could build something and just leave it tracking away. But with all the changes that happening in the browser market about increasing privacy, reducing the ability to just use cookies, it's become a lot more complex. And we find clients who are now getting to the stage where what has been they've built themselves is now being it's just no longer effective at doing what it needs to do, and so they need to take in something which is either they rebuild it themselves, and often the guys who build it in the first place, they've moved on from the company, nobody knows how to maintain it, or they can come to a company such as ourselves, which can provide them with that functionality. Lead gen is very much the heart of what built Cake. Cake was a lead generation company in the beginning under its previous incarnation called Accelerize, and there was like a big map of the US, and they would say like, do you want to remortgage your home? And you would click on the different parts of the map, and it would take you to brokers who could provide you with quotes. And what they realized at the time was that there was quite a lot of clients who wanted to do this as well. So they licensed their software, and then eventually we grew to being so much bigger than the original operation. And now we have offices in 4 different countries around the world, and it's been a great success.
And frankly, it's more fun to be part of the SaaS platform that helps companies, sort of succeed versus on the marketing side, which you're sort of, your feet are always held to the fire, right, for lead quality or whatever it is, and there's always things like changing. It's very fluid. When you have a marketing campaign you're always changing, always optimizing. You can't just put it on autoplay and let it go. But a SaaS, focused company, you can continue to develop this thing. And of course you have, issues with, I'm sure it's client success on certain things, but it's just, I think it's, at least me personally, probably a little bit more enjoyable to do the focus on the SaaS side of the business versus the marketing side.
Yeah, I mean, you can well, you can always tell from my background, with the degree that I held, I was always really interested in the technology first and foremost. When I worked at DGM, I had client relationships, but I migrated into becoming like the technical solutions manager for that, where I was helping to build out new technology for the company, and so for me, that's always what's held the interest.
Yeah,
and I really appreciate and value being able to go in and talk to clients on a top level about what can we do to help solve their problems. It's a I just sent off a document to one of the UK's large international banks. I'm sure you would have heard of them if I was allowed to talk about them, but they're obviously very interested in what's happening within the browser market, and how basically they're finding that their ability to track is being downplayed. And so I've just kind of like written out everything that we've done to mitigate, build a better system, how we're kind of like not currently affected, but these are the recommendations we would do. And you can see we've all, from the response that we're getting is that this is now necessary, and it feels great to be in a consultative position again, where we really are delivering value for companies' bottom lines, because they're clearly seeing things elsewhere slip.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's a good segue, because I was going to bring you back to that comment that you made about, the browsers and how things are changing. And so I kind of wanted to, ask you to elaborate a little bit on what you are seeing with, privacy and tracking, and how that's playing a part. Are more and more people sort of turning off their cookies and their tracking devices on their web browsers? Is that the issue at hand?
Yeah, definitely. So, I mean, over the last 2.5 years, I'd say, it's been a long process for WebKit, which is kind of run effectively by Apple, to produce the Safari browser. They introduced intelligent tracking prevention, and they've been slowly adding more and more restrictions to work in terms of what they can do. They don't seem to specifically be targeting companies like our clients, which has been useful, but when you talk about it on the theoretical side, they're very much targeting tracking cookies, and I think really they're aiming at the people, the big players in the market, the Facebooks, the Googles, the Criteos, retargeting companies, trying to stop you from being followed around the internet in a way which the consumer can see. But it's been having an impact, and certainly with the introduction of iOS 14, we've seen a large increase in the number of or a decrease in the accuracy that the standard out-of-the-box tracking can offer, and there's no real workarounds for that specific tracking. All you can do is move into a more advanced model, which we've built out. We have JavaScript tags, but they have their own restrictions, such as 24-hour limits on how long that cookie will last, which for a lot of our clients is enough. But also we have some innovative tracking solutions where we're tracking unique identifiers from the other side. So something that has nothing to do with us, but we know that about it at the click, we know about it at the conversion, and we can track that way. We're also, we've always had fingerprint tracking, so working on IP address and the type of device, which again is being affected by Apple's limitations in terms of how much information they allow the browser to leak to us in order to improve which would help us with our fingerprinting, but it's still at its basic level something that can work in situations when you're really struggling to implement something that's more advanced. So currently, I think we're offering server-to-server style tracking as our best practice, recommended best practice, but it's tricky to implement. And so I do a lot of consulting with our clients on how that actually works and what they need to do in order to implement it.
What do you think the margin of error is these days on, accurate tracking? I mean,
well, it's difficult to answer that straight because we cover so many different verticals, and if you take the majority of our clients are networks, and they will operate across different verticals, and they've seen quite varying impacts. A lot of the generic networks that handle a lot of new sign-up type stuff, so things like Deliveroo, I think in the US you might have something like DoorDash, that sort of thing, Amazon sign-ups, that sort of thing. They have been impacted, and so we've had to encourage them to get to migrate onto a more reliable tracking methodology, which is difficult because it's not straightforward to implement a change like that. You have to change the way that the pixels work. You need to change the way that the website often works in order to capture tracking IDs and things like that, and that's not always possible. So like I said, there's things that we can do to mitigate when the tracking is being impacted like this, but ultimately, change is coming, and all you can do really is prepare for that change. And we're seeing this, a lot of blue chip companies have already grasped the problem that's happening right now. But a lot of our clients we're having to reach out to and say, you realize this is coming, you're going to have to change this. We want you to not have a huge outage because a new browser release means that the way that you currently implement your tracking stops working for a large chunk of your traffic, and then suddenly you're into not good enough. There's always fine margins with a lot of our networks and other networks that you have to kind of work within. And if you were to lose 20%, 30% of your traffic or your tracking from that, then that could be a killer blow for you, really.
Yeah, and because generally we're talking about a third party driving traffic from a third party website to another website, right? And that third party is getting paid on a I don't know, maybe it's an action or a visit or something, right? But it's if that starts to go down, that third party is likely not going to send you that traffic, right? Or they're going to maybe send it somewhere else or divert it, and it really can cause a whole lot of problems for the whole industry to some extent, I would think, right?
Absolutely. And right now, there are some very big commercial relationships which rely on some of this accurate tracking, and affiliate marketing in particular is very vulnerable to taking away that accuracy, because some of the ideas that are being thrown around at the moment, such as this idea that there should only be like 64 traffic sources, flies straight into the
what's this? What do you mean 64 traffic sources?
So one of the changes that Apple has suggested is that they limit the number of attributable points to some random value. So they say that, when this conversion came in, I will tell you that it came from traffic source 3, so you can attribute it to them. But it doesn't tell you, and so if you have 64 affiliates, that's great, but obviously there's also your search campaigns, there's your display advertising, your social media. You want to track all of these different things, and you need to know not just the fact that it came from this traffic source, but also what was the creative, what was the message that the consumer saw. How do we track it back to something which you can then go out and optimize on? And they've delayed the implementation of this, I can't remember the exact words. It's like SK ad network or something that they want to has been proposed. But the idea is that they'd like to make this much less granular. And so for an affiliate network, which might have 1,000 affiliates and multiple creators on each offer that they might be running, the ability to track down to an individual click is really crucial for getting your attribution right.
Right.
Because if you don't, you're having to sort of say, like, I can't work with the vast majority of my affiliates. Like I might only be able to have 10 traffic sources that I can track back to.
Yeah, that's crazy. So they're limiting the to 64
it's a
actions
number
or
it could be
parameters.
100.
Okay.
But they want, there's various numbers have been bandied about, and I think that's an active discussion. We kind of sit on the outside of this, and we just have to try and adapt. Yeah. So we know, for example, there's a company that we work with, AppsFlyer, is going down that model. And that's mobile attribution, and they want us, and so we've built out a technology. We've somewhat clumsily called Clickless Postback that allows you to just say, right, I want a conversion to attributed to that particular affiliate with no essence of the click. Now you lose all of the things that affiliates have come to expect that they can optimize on, such as, they're running this big Google campaign, which ad actually got me that sale. All I know is I got a thing. And so you kind of go back to that pre-digital era where it was like, hey, I threw some TV adverts up and our sales went up by 10%. And it's like, was it that, or was it the newspaper ads that we put out? Was it the radio campaign that we ran? What was it was actually driving that increase in sales? Yeah. So we're hopeful that they won't go too far down this route.
Well, what's their reasoning? What's their reasoning for? Is it just trying to minimize the amount of, I wouldn't say personal information, but amount of information just being that could be sort of identified back to a specific individual? Is it a privacy thing?
I think it's a consumer. I think consumers got very scared when retargeting became a big thing. You would visit a website, you would look at some shoes, and then suddenly those shoes were following you all around the internet. And I think that was the point where the big technology companies woke up to this idea that consumers weren't very comfortable about. Here was a very tangible thing that they could see and understand meant that they were being profiled.
Yeah.
And Apple in particular, I think, saw that as a really great way in which to differentiate between themselves and Google running Android, was that we're not an advertising company, we're just going to protect your privacy. And so they started this process of trying to limit what could be tracked and how it could be tracked. And that's a process which establishes a clear blue line, clear blue water between them and Google, and it's very difficult to Google to respond to. So
yeah. The other thing that was kind of freaking people out too was, I don't know if many people know, but like geofencing, targeting, when you walk into like a certain maybe you walk into a shopping center or a store or whatever. And now you start seeing some kind of ads for that. And they're like, how the heck? I just, people don't understand how they're getting tracked. And then you'll hear some people go, I think the phone's listening to me because I just said this. And now it's, coming up on ads and all this kind of stuff, which maybe they are, I don't know, but
I think it's always very spooky how much information about ourselves we actually allow to get out there, and we don't even realize we're doing it. I mean, I have an Android phone, and it's just amazing how good Google are at finding articles that I'm interested in reading. Things out websites I'd never heard of, I'd never have gone to, but they know that I'm interested in this particular bit of information, and these guys seem to be really popular and give it a try, and they pull it all together. And it's sometimes I don't even remember like putting in a Google search, and then suddenly it's bringing up some product that I was interested in, but just as a kind of a sort of a gentle nudge sort of thing.
Yeah, and that's where I think it's going to be, there's so much discussion around this tracking and privacy, and then the algorithms that show you those articles or whatever they are. And I think there's got to be some sort of line, right? Because I think advertisers should have the right to collect information, especially on their ads, like we were talking about earlier, so that they can improve and optimize the campaigns and the advertising dollars that they're spending. That makes complete sense. That shouldn't be limited in any way, I don't think. I also don't think necessarily behavioral tracking or anything like that should be limited, because it's very easy for you to just say, I don't want to see this ad anymore, right? It's most platforms have that option. You can stop seeing those shoes following you all around the internet. But then again, you get a little concerned about the algorithms that show you articles or shows you information that continues down your interest line, and politically speaking, you could be going down a path that could be dangerous. If you're watching, if you're, I don't know, conspiracy theories or whatever it may be, you keep seeing the same stuff over and over and not seeing a different opinion, that could be problematic. So there is somewhere that we have to figure out, in the next, in our lifetime here, of how we manage, advertising and impressions and articles and all this sort of stuff in the digital age. But it is concerning that, how they may overstep some of the, bounds and go, oh, we think we're fixing this by limiting the amount of attributes that we're passing along with a pixel or whatever it may be. That may be an overstep, right? That's not maybe thinking through everything.
But that's the way that certain people are pushing it. And I think what will probably happen is that people will start to realize just how valuable this data is to these big companies. And I think ultimately we'll see some way in which that money starts to flow back to the individual consumer. It might be that, for example, newspaper paywalls will open up if you allow data to be collected and for yourself to be profiled in a way, or maybe there's like a stock of information that your browser holds about you. You can choose to hand it over to, in a fairly anonymized form to some website in order to get some sort of return for it. There's a big need, I feel, for a lot of microtransactions out there in the world, which currently it's just too clunky to take place. And I think like some sort of digital wallet where your value to advertisers should be rewarded in some way in order to allow this kind of activity to continue. But I mean, it's a long way from that. And, if that doesn't change quickly, you will probably find that the regulators have a lot to say about whether that a vision like that could ever come to fruition.
Yeah. And I think any way you look at it, it's a contraction of the ability of where it is now, right? Any sort of way we go, it seems like it's going to affect what we're doing today in a negative way, right? We're going to have less opportunities to optimize. We're going to only have a finite maybe amount of people that opt into something versus maybe something bigger. So that doesn't sound good in any way, but we certainly have to be prepared for it and evolve and change and all that kind of stuff. So that's good that Cake's definitely being proactive and monitoring the tracking side of these types of things for their clients and customers. But that's just one part of it, right? That's the sort of middle of the funnel, right? Where traffic is coming in, you guys are you're able to track it, pay out, all that sort of stuff. But you guys also do something that's really cool on the distribution side. So generating a lead is one side of it, but now what, right? So tell me a little bit about what Cake does there.
Yeah. So, I mean, when we actually ingest the lead data, so unlike a lot of platforms that other people might be familiar with out there, we actually know we can take in, for example, the first name, the last name, the email address, the phone number, and so on, and you can configure that to whatever you need to capture. And then what we can do is we can build out a pricing strategy for those types of leads as they come in. So if you have to go to that example, mortgage leads around the US, you might have people who are looking to provide mortgages in Texas, and we have different ones who are looking to provide in New York, and other ones in Ohio and California, etc., etc. And some of these will be national companies or regional companies or just very local companies. And what we'll be able to do is to say that these guys are prepared to pay this amount and they're looking for these in this area, and we can build up all of these competing interests of people who would buy a lead, and then at the point that we get the lead in, we can decide which one's going to earn the Cake client the most money. And so we will sell it effectively to the highest bidder, and then distribute the lead to that person, which may involve having to ping the client first, get some sort of like URL to forward to, so we can actually drop the user off at the point at the landing page where they can actually continue the process of taking out a mortgage or getting a quote on a mortgage, etc. And if people, and we can manage things like, some people have certain budgets. I can afford to buy it now, but I can't afford to buy it after X amount of money. Or some people, we have a ping tree functionality which will allow you to find out a dynamic price. So the whole emphasis of the system is to say, well, I'm generating good quality leads. I need a system which is going to find me the best buyer for it and what's going to monetize that the best way.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of elements to that, such as validation, making sure that the data looks good, that it doesn't fail any profanity tests, that that the email address is valid. There's all of these things that kind of come built into Cake, which help you to sort of cleanse your data and make sure that what you deliver to the end buyer is as free of random superfluous leads as possible. And as I'm sure you're aware, the quality, if you can establish that you've got a very high quality source of leads, then people are prepared to, they have more confidence that they're prepared to pay you more, and therefore the CPAs go up a lot quicker than if you're also blending in their low quality leads because of a traffic source, or because you have no way of controlling, if an email address is not submitted as part of the lead, for example.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and that all happens within milliseconds too, right?
Absolutely.
I mean, all those things happen in real time, which is awesome. So thinking of an example, I think in the lead gen side, like boilers are like or home services in the UK is popular, right? Maybe. So if I've got a website, a directory website with a bunch of different services and maybe contractors or workers or whatever it is that are providing home care services, whether it's hot water heaters or whatever it may be, that traffic is going to come into the website. We can track all that. It comes in. Then I can have all those people set up on a bidding price, right? They can bid on the leads that they want. Maybe in London, the leads are a little bit more expensive and there's more demand for that. Yep. So there's a bidding process. Maybe out in, I don't know, Manchester, it's not. So then the system will find, obviously, the lead, look for the location, where it's at. If it's in London, okay, it needs to go to these guys, and whoever the highest bidder is that's available right now to take it, it'll determine all those things and distribute it.
Absolutely. And we have to make that decision. I mean, we have different modes of working. So we have integrations with call centers, for example, so that we can send a lead off. And then we have some clients who will actually call up the lead, make sure that it is a real person at the end of the line before it's actually then sent back into the Cake system and forwarded to whichever the successful buyer is. But then there is a mode of operating where we literally have to make all of these decisions within a few milliseconds. The user has just clicked submit, and they are sitting there with a little spinny logo in front of them, and we need to get them to the buyer who's taken that lead before any kind of a timeout. And right. Cake can do that very quickly, but we'll often have to wait on certain buyer systems to respond to the fact, hey, we've sent you this lead, do you want to buy it? And then they take their time, they come back to us, they give us the affirmative, we compare that to other responses that we've had elsewhere, and then we decide who are we going to sell it to, and we forward the user on to that landing page, and then they continue the process for checking out on whatever the lead was for.
But you're still talking about like a second at a time, very, very quickly doing all those things, and even waiting for the other. My guess is you probably have some monitoring or regulations of whether a ping post is taking too long or whatever it may be for your liking.
So you specify timeouts on all of the areas that you want, but I mean Cake can do it in under 500 milliseconds. We can make a decision. I mean, it will depend on how many things, how many factors we have to sort of do, but under half a second to make a decision. However, we know of buyer systems out there that will take 10 seconds. So you just have to wait around if you want to work with it. Yeah, it is too long, but sometimes that's what the client needs. So we have to make our system perform to that. So we minimize as much as we can in terms of the time taken, and we have to build into that. And then we give you reporting in terms of how long each individual, what we call a buyer contract in the system, is taking in order to respond to us, because that will affect If you're even working with them, I've got a buyer, I haven't sold anything to them. It's like, well, you've given them 5 seconds and they're responding 6 seconds, 7 seconds on average. Well, they're just never going to be factored in because we have to move on at some point. So
yeah. So how are your clients sort of utilizing Kate to get the most value or the most revenue out of the leads that they're generating?
Oh, I mean, there's quite extensive functionality around that. So one of the things that is kind of underused, I would feel, is the upsells. So especially when you capture the lead. So there's various functions in how it works. So this idea that you can send the buyer off to the user off directly to the buyer isn't the only way that we work. Often we hold on to the user, or the client will hold on to the user. They'll just come up with a page. It'll say, thank you for your details. Somebody will get in touch with you in the next 24 hours or whatever. But at that point, you often can legitimately work out information about that user. So if they're looking at, for example, a new mortgage, it's likely that they're going to be moving house, or they're going to buy a new house to let, something like that. That means they're normally interested in some of the other functions that comes with that, some of the financial services. So home insurance, public liability insurance for if you're a business for doing this. And so what you can do is you can present the user with an upsell offer and try to move them on. And that doesn't have to be something that you yourself own. It could be that there's an affiliate network out there that takes leads like that, and they're looking for qualified traffic. Yeah. So we can plug you in so that the click came through from this particular affiliate, and it went into your system, and you converted them to a lead, and then maybe you converted them again on a different offer within your system, and then you further upsold them into a different offer that was run by an affiliate network that you happen to work with, or a lead gen company that is looking for comparative leads, and so you're trying to maximize as much commission for every single click. And I think for many of your viewers that they should be aware that EPC is king. All of the metrics really fall by the wayside, and maximizing your EPC is really crucial for turning what might be a minor campaign into something which is actually quite profitable for you in the longer run.
And so EPC is like average cost per click, right? Basically,
earnings per click.
Earnings per click. Yeah,
because there will be.
I said average. Yeah, no, earnings per click, right? So tell me a little bit about sort of the ping post. I don't know how popular ping post is in the UK. Do you find a lot of companies are sort of using that ability to ping somebody and go, do you want this and how much, and kind of do that system versus? Well, so tell me real quick the difference between ping post and then I actually just going in and doing putting the people in there based on price and doing a bidding, like the difference between ping post and bidding.
So, I mean, it's typically the way the client set up is not on a ping post. They will come into us and they will start off on a basic thing where they'll have a relationship with some sort of buyer out there, and that buyer says, "I will buy leads off you. This is the amount that I'll pay," and it's it's a deal that's struck in an office somewhere, and they're happy to go ahead with that. Right. So they will put restrictions in place and so on, but and so you just go into Cake and you say, right, this guy is prepared to pay this amount of money for every lead that I send through. There may be complication or like additions to that. So they may say, for example, in the case of a mortgage lead, they may say, I will pay you in the UK £10 for mortgages under the value of £100,000 total, but I'll pay you £20 or £50 if it's 100 to 500,000, and I'll pay you £500 for every lead that goes above that. And so you can build that pricing strategy directly into the Cake system, and so it's there, it's hard coded effectively. So when a lead comes in, we work out, okay, the value of the property is X, which band does it fit in, which buyer contract does this go to, what price is therefore due on it. And then at the same time that we're looking at that, we will you can then add on and mix into it a ping post. So we will contact the buyers who want to work this way as soon as we know anything about the user. We will tell them basic information, not how to contact them, just, how much is the house worth? How much are they looking to mortgage? What's the deposit, etc. And say, what would you pay for that lead? That value then comes back, and then it's just compared against all of the ones that are hard coded in. And then we just sell to the highest one. Or, I mean, there's other reasons you might sell to ones to make sure that they hit quota, et cetera. But there are, largely trying to maximize the amount of money that you earn for every lead that you take through.
And I guess the reason why you'd want to do a ping post with somebody or want to build that out is because that buyer has sort of a variable as well that's always sort of changing, a price that may be changing based on their own demand or whatever. And it's getting a little bit more sophisticated than saying, okay, I'm going to pay 20 pounds for every remortgage lead there is. Now, well, maybe I'll pay 21 or 18 based on certain things, and it could be a little bit more dynamic and always changing. So makes it a little bit more efficient, I would imagine, between the two partners.
It does, and for the larger buyers out there, I mean, I sat down with a Scottish provider of kind of like payday loan type things, and it's very, for them, whenever they take a lead on, it's not just a case of them making money; they take risk with it, and so they have as they take more and more leads on during the day, those could potentially convert into sales, and as that happens, it soaks up their capital. So they have less and less appetite for taking on more and more leads throughout the day. Now, it's not to say that they won't, it's just that their appetite for it drops, and therefore the amount of money that they will pay will drop with that. And so it's like a natural way of like reducing the amount that they get in, because ultimately a very large part of the component cost of processing the lead is actually paying for it. So if the cost of it drops by 30%, 40% during the day, they can still get a few of those things through without affecting too badly their own financial risks. So it's a very interesting area to get into, and for the bigger buyers, it's a no-brainer if you can get your behind-the-scenes software to manage that.
Yeah, because it goes as a lead buy, as a company like you're elaborating on, the ability to right price, every lead and pay exactly what you think it's worth based on a whole bunch of different factors, whether it's demand or supply and all that sort of stuff, or whether it's specific filters, but paying a specific price base for each lead is really smart, and that you can't do just by giving you, me sending over an email to you and saying, okay, I'll pay this. That becomes a little bit hard to manage, if it's not in, real-time automation, ping post type of scenario, I would guess.
Yeah, absolutely. And you see it with some of the bigger guys in the marketplace. We've worked with some of those like really big payday loan lenders where that was just absolutely 100% essential to working in the space. But it's not for a lot of the smaller guys that take Cake on certainly to begin with. It tends to be more sort of, I already have some sort of relationship in place and I just want to leverage that. And the guys that I'm working with may not necessarily have that, or if they do, it's kind of, well, we've struck a deal, so we do have this functionality, but I'm not going to work with it because I trust what I've got written on paper in terms of that thing. But that will change with time as people grow.
Yeah. So, I mean, Cake is a lot of things, but a lot of this we're talking about now is this distribution sort of part of it. One of the things that, I talk about a lot about here and on this podcast is the difference between the US and UK with regards to the distribution of a single lead to multiple companies. And, here it's completely transparent. The consumer knows that they're going to get 3 companies from this, these banks are going to call me about a checking, whatever it may be. And they're going to compete for my business. It's not quite the same there. I know there are some industries in the UK that definitely do that and sell a lead multiple times. But Cake has the ability to, distribute a data lead to multiple companies if you wanted to, right?
Yeah. So, like you said, in the UK, I'd say the majority of our clients who use the lead gen module, they tend to go for exclusive sales, but there are some that do it on a smaller scale. Often when leads have gotten too old, they'll go to the situation where they'll sell it to multiple things. But I really like the idea that I think we've had discussions before where this, for the consumer, one of the big issues, and I've experienced this myself, is that you get one quote and you kind of like, do I want that
Yeah, there's
So
no
am I ready?
comparison. Yeah,
Like,
yeah.
is this a good deal? And it's not until you get the second or the third quote come through that actually you make your mind up and you tend to go for it. So this idea that like multi-selling the lead could actually boost the way that the number of consumers that convert. Admittedly, for each individual buyer, that might not necessarily work out so well, but the quality will show through. In the conversion rate that you see down the line, and that ultimately will feed back up into the numbers that you see.
Yeah.
And Cake, one of the nice things about Cake is that Cake evaluates exclusive sales alongside multi-sales. So
That is cool.
you can actually say, right, okay, well, my exclusive sale is going to give me £10, but I can actually multi-sell this for £4 each, and so I'm £2 up if I sell it 3 times on the multi-sell side of things, and so it will sell it on that model rather than the traditional exclusive model, which people are more familiar with.
Yeah, that's awesome. I didn't even think about that, and I forgot about that because there was times when I was on the lead gen side of the business, and we were selling leads, and we would sell exclusive. And sometimes there'd always be a guy that would go, "Hey, I'd like to buy exclusive leads," and we're like, "Well, okay, we don't really do that. If you're buying a mortgage lead, it's going to be sold to up to 3 companies for this price, and that's what it is." But I suppose if you want to pay that price that we would make for 3, or maybe somewhere around there, we could put it in there. And if you get some leads, you get some leads,
Yeah.
And that's nice to know that you guys have that ability to sort of compare based on price and maximize the revenue depending on what's currently available out there to distribute to.
Yeah. I mean, it's really interesting when you show clients that for the first time. A lot of people come to us, and I think the UK market is a little bit less savvy to lead gen. I think it's very much focused on the industry I come from, the affiliate side, which is quite branded, and lead gen is less developed over here. And people kind of come into it with this idea of like what you can do, and then a large part of what my job is kind of opening their eyes to this idea that actually we can do a lot more. You can adopt a completely different strategy for your pricing around your leads than you ever thought was possible. A lot of the clients they come in and they say, well, this was the way that I thought that it would work. And it's like, we're going to make it work that way. So, well, you do realize that we've been doing this for 12 years now. We know the best ways that you're going to be able to monetize this. So why don't you open up to this possibility? And it's normally like a process that can take a few months, but eventually they get there, and they'll add it in. And the nice thing is, because you can do it so seamlessly, like you can just add in a multi-sell next to an exclusive sell. You can add in a ping post next to a straight up thing. They just add it in once, and then before you know it, the next time you log into their system, everything seems to have switched over, and they're just very happy about how much extra money they're making.
Yeah, absolutely. And of course there's there's a bad view of leads being sold multiple times, because when you say that, you go, oh my God, they're going to sell these leads to whoever, and it's going to be sold a dozen times, which is horrible. You definitely don't want that. As a buyer, when you hear that your lead is going to be sold to 2 other companies, you obviously are concerned. You're like, oh my God, I'm not going to be able to compete, or the leads aren't going to convert and all this sort of stuff. But of course, there's a diminishing return on how many times you sell a lead, right? If you sell a lead 10 times versus selling it 3 times, that's going to be wildly different in conversion rate. But if lead gen companies here were forced to sell a lead exclusively, that lead would be, again, to your example, it would be £20 shared, but exclusively could be $60, £60, and that price no longer works for the cost and the conversion and all that sort of stuff. Because what I've found is that the conversion rate on an exclusive lead versus a shared lead doesn't equally represent the increase in cost.
No,
if that makes sense. Yeah. So at least depends on the industry and the economics and how much it costs per. I mean, if we're sticking on the mortgage example, mortgage refinance, the keyword on Google is wildly expensive. I mean, it's very, very expensive. And so if a lead were to come through that and you were to sell that exclusively, you're not making any money. you're losing money. You're losing money because that cost is way more than it is at what you're going to back out and what the buyer thinks that cost per lead should be. It's just not going to work. But now if the lead is sold 3 times, now the cost is, a third, let's just say, for easy math, but the conversion rate isn't dramatically, it's going to be different, but it's going to pencil out. It just pencils out differently because it goes back to what you were sort of alluding to, is that when a consumer is making a choice or shopping, if you can have them walk into your store and you have a number of jackets lined up that they can choose from, they're going to buy from your store because they can choose. But if you only have one jacket in your store, well, they're going to look at it and then they're going to go to another store and look at it. And by the time they figure it out, it's usually going to be the last store they walk into. They go, I'll just get this jacket, versus the one that they should have gone into. So being able to house all those options in one path is actually going to promote more decision making and then subsequently more conversions between those 3 choices, not going somewhere else.
I love that idea. I think it's definitely one that I'll be taking into discussions with clients to take the lead gen module. Because I think that's quite powerful.
Because there's that perception. There's a really bad negative perception that leads are being sold too many times. So what is that? What is the number that is effective? I think it's 3 times at the most is what I think personally. I think consumers can make a legitimate decision between 3 options. Anything more than that becomes too much. They're going to get bombarded with calls, and you don't want that to happen either. You want 3 companies to call or email, and then you be able to make a good decision, and they'll be able to have the tools in front of them to make that decision every time. So, but yeah, it's scary to go, oh, well, now you're not getting exclusive leads, and that's buyers will automatically recoil from that and react in a negative way and go, I don't want shared leads. And so you give it to them at a cheaper cost and see how it works as a test. And I guarantee, I think it works out for everybody.
Yeah. And just the fact that you're saying this is really interesting because it checks out with the way that Cake sets up its defaults. So selling to 3 buyers in the multi-sell is the default way that Cake configures itself. So you can obviously change that if you want, but I don't think I would recommend that based on what you're telling me now. So.
Yeah, I think it makes sense. We did like back in the day. I don't know if I told this story 100 times or not, but I'll make it quick. We would start out new industries and new verticals, and each vertical we'd find a couple buyers for it, and then we would have a backstop. Like an aggregator or something that can take all the volume. So if we couldn't sell it to ours, then we would sell it for half the price to somebody that's going to resell it to somebody else, that kind of thing. But we would sell exclusively to start just because we didn't have the coverage. And we would sell it and the quality is all good and all this sort of stuff. And we would break even sort of on cost. And then we would tell them, hey, at some point we're going to sell this to 3 times, and then we would add it and we would tell our buyers that, okay, we're adding the second leg to it now. And the price would go down that they were paying. And now we're selling it up to 2 times. And there wasn't a big difference in conversion rate at all between 1 and 2. And then we would add the third one. And conversion rates went down just a little bit. But the cost per sale actually went down when it sold to 3 times because the cost of the lead went down significantly from the conversion rate. And it just goes back to what I just said. When you only have one option, you're going to take that option, you're going to go somewhere else and shop somebody else. It doesn't mean that they're not shopping. It doesn't mean that you're the only option. That's silly to think that just because they filled out this form and it's only going to you, that they're not also filling out other forms or doing other things. So, so my point is that we didn't really see anything significant that was so far off of the cost per sale versus an exclusive and a shared.
Yeah. It makes perfect sense, and like I said earlier, it really echoes with some of my experiences. For example, when I was looking for double glazing, I got a couple of double glazed windows. I got a couple of quotes, and then it was such a trauma getting to that point. I was like, well, I'll get another one to sort of see it, and then just didn't get around to it. So to this day, I'm still looking for double glazing. That's a missed opportunity. So if only I'd had a cake system selling my lead 3 times, then this wouldn't have happened.
Yeah, you get them all right there, and you have your options, and you obviously choose the best ones. It's that simple, right? Yeah, but that's cool. That's really, really cool. So before I've got you way beyond the time I expected, but I want to ask you one last question. We've been talking about sort of the lead gen and the sort of the affiliate company that's or the agency, the marketing company that's has partners driving traffic into it, paying out on whatever it is, and then selling that data to a buyer potentially. Do the end buyers use Cake as well to intake the leads and then distribute it out to their own workforce, or is really Cake most suited for the lead generator or agency or affiliate?
The majority of the value add comes from choosing which lead to distribute, which destination for the lead to go to.
Yeah.
So we do have some clients who take it as a buyer system. And it can be used in that way. It's just that if you compare, normally the buyers themselves, I mean, they consume it internally for themselves. So effectively, you got a one-to-one relationship between like lead coming in, lead going to somebody who's going to call the lead or contact the lead in some way in order to convert it to sale. Cake has done that. For example, we've had one client who took the Cake system and then used it to distribute the leads to the most appropriate agent internally to their platform. Yep. And they had all these rules around, these are gold agents, these are silver agents. Depending on their level, they got certain mixtures of different types of leads. And so Cake was really useful in helping that. But it's a case where you have to build some logic to decide, I'm going to get a lead in and I need to send it over to here. Well, for most buyers, there's some sort of very bespoke process that goes into it, or it's really so simple that paying for an external platform is not so important. But that being said, for all of the clients that they have it, we've got clients who plug into other clients of ours. So somebody collects a lead, they sell it in, it comes in, it goes through their ping tree, whatever. Right. It decides I'm going to sell to this other buyer that happens to be a Cake client. It goes into theirs. It then goes to its own ping solution in order to work out it going through. So it's it can be used. It's just not as common a use case.
Got it. All right. So if somebody wants to get a hold of you and learn more about it, what do we got? I guess we can shoot out getcake.com here. They can and just go through the contact page there and learn more and sign up for a demo and all that good stuff, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And if you put Ben at the beginning of that, that's my email address. If you want to drop me a line, and I can take you through, or we can get you set up so you can have a look at the system if you'd like to learn more.
Got it. So Ben at getcake.com.
Mm-hmm.
Is the email? Yep. Okay, cool. Well, good stuff, man. It was fun chatting with you today. We sort of talked about all types of things, and that makes it fun. So I appreciate you hopping on with me and talking about it. And it's going to be good to continue to watch Cake develop and help a lot of companies, frankly, come into the industry and distribute leads efficiently and effectively and make the most money they can. So again, I appreciate you joining, and I look forward to doing this maybe again down the road.
Yeah, thank you very much. It's been great. And looking forward to Lead Gen World. So
awesome. Well, I'll see you. Thank you, Ben. I appreciate it, and I'll talk with you later.
Cheers. Bye-bye now.